setting new standards in podcast excellence. You have joined the WBT, fully focused on business and taxes. Here is your host, Michael Lodge.
And welcome to the WBT. This is Mike Lodge. I'm glad you're with me again. I enjoy my time with you every morning or evening or wherever you're listening. Hey, I was looking at my stats of my podcast, and I was noticing that it always tells me which countries are looking at me, or listening to me, I should say. And what I was truly amazed at is the fact that the United States is my number one listener, but my second country is India. It rates about 20% of my listeners come from India. So all of you in India, I love you. I'm glad you're listening to me. If you have any questions, just let me know, okay? And I'll be more than happy to talk with you. I'm so happy that India's there. And then there's Taiwan, and there's Hong Kong, and there's Mexico, and just a whole host of other countries that are listening to me on a full-time basis, which really amazes me. And that is part of the lesson that we're going to learn today is about storytelling. Everything that we're doing right now is basically virtual. That means that you and I have got to be able to really tell a good story. When we're talking to people virtually, we have got to be almost in the present tense. We are presenting our information, our story, our pitch, or whatever we're doing, our meeting schedule, or whatever we're doing. We are doing it virtually now. That means that we have got to become really good storytellers. And I've always told people, especially in mediation, because I'm in mediation. And so I listen to a lot of different stories. And one of the things I have always told people is that I want to hear a really good story. I want to hear the facts. I want you to be short and concise. And I want you to be able to tell me something that is going to help the situation for us to move on and get a successful mediation. Remember, the story is the most important. Keeping to the who, what, when, and where, and not going off onto an emotional level. It's all about your story that convinces the other side to work with you. And that's what you need to do in mediation. You need to convince the other side that you're serious and you want to come to a resolution and you want to solve a problem. And that is based upon your story and how much you believe in your story. I tell you, storytelling is so important. I used to have a business partner. And I always told him, you should never be in accounting. You should be in marketing because you really know how to tell a story. And he could almost convince anybody to do or go in the direction that he wanted them to go to. He was so good at it that I would watch him sometimes and I would become convinced. Even though I knew that I don't really agree with the story, but I was convinced that it was a good story. But he was so good at it. And I often, now he's no longer in accounting. In fact, right now he is in marketing for a company up in San Francisco. So it truly amazes me that if you know that you're not good at storytelling, that you don't really try and improve on it. I have to do it every single day. I am probably the worst storyteller. I am the worst salesperson. I am the worst marketing person ever out there. Because I will sit there and I will probably tell you why not to buy it. That's how bad I am. But when it comes to storytelling, I have always had the ability. I can't sell, but I can express my story and tell. I'll give you a good example, okay? I had a client come to me, and he needed to raise about $2 million. And it was for a coffee farm over in Hawaii. And that's what he wanted in his life, and he wanted to start that. And so he and his partners asked me to go to a meeting with them in Los Angeles to talk to an investor. So I said, okay, fine. I don't know why you want me there because, well, you can explain the numbers. So I said, yes, I can explain the numbers. Because I'm good at explaining the numbers. That has been my life since 1984. So I was sitting there at the meeting, and both my clients began to talk. And as I watched the investor, I could tell that he was getting more and more confused. So I stepped in, and I told them the story. I told the investor the story of the concept and the life in the coffee farm that was on Hawaii, and the types of coffee and the Kona coffee and the financial impact. And I told them the whole story of the product and the project and the product and also the financial side. Because that's what I was good at. I'm good at those kinds of presentations. I look at Steve Jobs of Apple. He was a really good storyteller. He literally had you convinced that what he was doing was a significance upon the world. And that his product would so much improve your life that you had to have it. I find it amazing on the storytelling abilities of Steve Jobs. And there are other people out there too that have really good ability to tell their story, their company's story. I've always said this. You have two responsibilities. One, to know your company, know the story of the company. The second part of that responsibility is to know your financials. Because you are going to have to explain your financials to a banker, an investor, employees. You are going to have to explain that, and you have to know how to tell that story of your financial situation. And all of us at the moment are going through financial situations in business. If you're a small business guy, you're being stressed out. But you can still tell a good story. And that's what's important. Because if you can have the ability to go out and tell a story about your company, you can find other clients. You can display yourself before the community in which you serve. Storytelling is so important. Very, very, very important. So today, when most of your communication is virtual, like with Zoom and in Teams and WebEx et al., and all the other stuff that's out there, it helps you effectively engage your audience. Because we're now into this new technology of virtual communication. And we have to know how to tell our stories. You have to animate, you have to act, you have to play, you have to better use your nonverbal communication while speaking in the present tense. Now, it's not only the storytelling, it's like story playing. A small change makes a big impact on how you present yourself on virtual media. You're telling a story, but you also have to act it out. And you have to be very animated. Steve Jobs was always so animated, right? Most of his communication was done through virtual. Even when he did his presentations on new products coming out, he was very animated and very virtual. He was doing it on live communications. He was good at it. What? He was really good at it. So you have to decide what's your story and how you're going to tell it. And I don't care if you got to practice in front of a mirror, you have got to be able to tell your story. You have got to be able to convince other people that you know what you're doing, that you know what you're talking about, that you can fulfill their desires in whatever aspect that they need your help in. You have to be able to tell that story to convince them. Practice makes perfect. You know, I remember I was in the Philippines once because I had an office there. And I remember listening to an actress. Her name's Ai. She said this. And I don't agree with it, so but it was funny, okay? It was damn funny. And she goes, practice makes perfect. But who's perfect, so why practice? Well, that's a funny bit, but it's kind of an untrue bit because you really do need to practice to be perfect at the storytelling that you're going to be doing. So you decide what is your story and how you're going to tell it. Hey, this is Mike Lodge. Listen, if you have any questions, concerns, issues you want to raise with me, send me a text at 818-252-5682. Again, that's 818-252-5682. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions and to guide you along. Everybody, I want you to go out, tell your story, practice your story, and let's get going because businesses have got to open up here and we've got to be much better than what we have been in the past. Because now we're in survival mode. This is Mike Lodge. Talk with you soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the WBT with Michael Lodge. Join us again tomorrow as we explore more about business and taxes. Follow us on iHeartRadio and go to our podcast website at www.wbtpod.com and listen to all of our podcasts and read our blogs.
This podcast has been produced by Michael Lodge, fully focused on content.